So the afternoon session starts with the second panel discussion under the theme Research for Development and Impact, Policy, Funding and Partnership. To lead us through the afternoon session, the moderator for the panel is none other than Professor Damto Tafarra. Professor, the floor is yours. And to keep the notes, I kindly ask Dr. Nugrotu Kabedet to come to the stage as well.
The session, I think the Master of Ceremony already indicated, it's research and development, but slightly with a different slang. We're going to focus on policy, funding, and partnerships. So the panelists here, a number of them, I think many of them are known to me. This Professor Afur Kasu, he's now the Director General of Armor Hansen Research Institute of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. So please welcome Professor Afur. Please join us. The second one is Professor Joshua Gisembe Bagaka. I hope I didn't torture your name. Is he online?
Yes.
All right. So Professor Bagaka is a Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Student Affairs at KCA. He's a Professor of Quantitative Research Methods and Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Academic and Student Affairs. So the next one is Dr. Solomon Kiros. He is from Addis Ababa University. Solomon, a PhD at Addis Ababa University, but he probably tells us briefly later when he gets a chance. So the first question we shared with the panelists is, to what extent do national research policies in Africa in general support development-oriented research? Just to give a background to that, I remember, I think Professor Masasha is here and a number of you here, I remember Addis Ababa University and probably Ethiopia University in general at some point established a flagship initiative and how the universities actually support that initiative. So, at least from the Ethiopian perspective. But that as a background, let me start from my left here, Afur. What is the extent to which national research policies in Africa support development?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon to all in this hall and others joining us virtually. The panel topic picked for our today's engagement is critically important for us in Africa and elsewhere because it's about research and development. Research and its connection to development is largely guided by our policy frameworks. In Africa, from my previous experience as State Minister, when we are trying to review our science, technology, and innovation policy of Ethiopia, which was enacted in 2012, we're trying to review several countries' SCTI policies. What's common? What was common, and I guess what is common even now, is they all support development. In our policies, they all start with specific policy issues. When you go and scrutinize the policy issues, they start with research. And when they explain about research, most of our policy documents say research has to be aligned with the development needs of the countries in Africa. So they support in principle in the policy documents because they were stating that one. Not only the policy documents, and the strategy documents also developed to connect the policy directions to actual implementation, also detail how those things can be connected to development endeavors.
Move to my colleague Bagaka. Prof. Bagaka, please let me bring you in here. You're kind of the perspectives. You can give us the Kenyan perspective. Now you got the perspective from Ethiopia. Would you like to come in, Prof?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, as it was mentioned, I'm Joshua Bagaka from Kenya. I really wanted to be there in person, but I'm actually currently in Pretoria, South Africa. But I wanted to join you regardless, and I'm hoping that one of these days I will actually be in Addis Ababa soon. But coming to the point which you have just mentioned, the perspective of Kenya. First of all, I want to say that there has been quite a lot of attempts in the continent to actually have policies which focus on research for development. But there is quite some wide variations from country to country. And I think we do have models which we can follow. For example, in Kenya, there is an established Science, Technology and Innovation Act.
Good afternoon. I'm Solomon from Addis Ababa University. I have done my PhD in bioengineering from Japan, Nagasaki University. And currently I'm the staff member of School of Chemical and Bioengineering at AMSKILO or Addis Ababa University. And because of the new reform undertaken at Addis Ababa University, currently I'm serving as interim director for innovation and engagement, or with the former name, University Industry Linkage and Technology Transfer Director, as well as acting director for community engagement and the head of Incubation Center of Addis Ababa University. Thank you.
You have done very well in 30 seconds. Okay, now I want you to engage with the question. Then, what are the mechanisms to actually for us, in terms of researchers, that the kind of work we do, the findings we undertake, the innovations, etc., are translated into practical and impactful development agenda?
Yes, you know that now one of the critical issue currently related to the research is it's not about the policy, it's about the funding. You know that African leaders, they agree that to allocate 1% of their GDP for research and innovation. But only South Africa is allocating such amount of fund for research and development, but other countries are struggling still. So we have a mixed up of in research and development. This also is related to the research policy. So now the main gap is to reach, or our policies did not force us to bring our researchers to reach into the end users. So we are not going beyond the publication. So the reason why that is because the research ideas are coming from the interest of individual researchers. It's not from the interest of the government. It's not from the need of the industry. So how can we are going to reach it down into the end users?
That has been a very critical question to all of us in research and development area. For us, mainly in higher education and research institutions. We conduct research, but our research findings are not translated into impact the way we want them to be. How shall we address, how shall we challenge that challenge? We need to look into interfaces, policy and institutional interfaces.
The final round of paper presentation under the theme Research for Development and Impact. To lead the session for us, we have none other than Dr. Toabech Bishau, She is a passionate public health specialist with over 50 years of subnational, national, and global work in public health leadership, program design, management, and evaluation. I now hand over the control of the room to Dr. Tuabet.
Good afternoon, everybody. This, I think, is almost the last session, except after this session, the two sessions, we have the summary session. So it's also going to be the last session for the 23rd International Conference on Private Higher Education in Africa. At this point, I would like to thank Professor Wandosen and his team for organizing such an outstanding work for not just for Ethiopia's development, but for Africa's development, that we can also say that for the world higher education development. And again, thank you, Professor Wandosen. The topic that we're going to discuss is a logical follow from our discussion earlier from the panel deliberations. Except that here we will have three outstanding distinguished speakers on their respective topics. Having said that, I'll call our three distinguished speakers this afternoon. The first speaker is Dr. Samuel Dermas, an Eritrean American scholar with a PhD in curriculum and instruction from University of Kansas. The second speaker is Ms. Tariq Asaye. She is a GIS and remote sensing lecturer at Kotebe University of Education. The last presenter is Professor Ababa Wirga. He is a professor of higher education and the director of quality assurance at Addis Ababa University, Ministry of Education, and previously held the position of director at the Ethiopian Institute for Higher Education at Addis Ababa University. Now these are our distinguished speakers. I will, according to our program, I will ask Professor Samuel Dermas to present his speech.
Thank you so much. I didn't hear you before, I'm sorry. This is a very broad topic, actually, but I thought this could serve as a preliminary study to see the prospects and challenges in achieving research excellence in African higher education institutions. As we know that, in fact, Madam Chair explained this earlier, that higher education institutions serve very important, or they play a very important role in knowledge production and innovation. That's quite true. And in fact, Tafara, I think this is Professor Danto Tafara, my very favorite professor, and Altabach argue that in Africa, the role of universities is very important in addressing socioeconomic challenges and promoting technological advancements and fostering sustainable development, as it was earlier explained by the Madam Chair. Now, when it comes to achieving research excellence, it is usually characterized by various factors, right? When we talk about research excellence, for example, high impact, international recognition, relevance to societal needs, and the like. But this is more complex than it appears, especially when it comes to achieving them in African higher education institutions. Now, basically, the paper examines the prospects and challenges of achieving research excellence in the post-secondary institutions in Africa. And in order to do this, the study is aimed to provide a comprehensive understanding of what it takes to cultivate a research-driven academic environment in Africa. When it comes to the definition of research excellence in the context of Africa particularly, I think it's very controversial. As Michael Appel, a very popular scholar here in the United States, Wisconsin University, says, who defines research excellence for us? And it's important that we understand what the criteria are for defining research excellence. Because usually what happens is that it seems that the Westerners define it for us, and they have very reputable journals, and we want our research papers to be published in those journals. And due to that reason, we may really take their standards as really benchmarks to define research excellence. But it is more than that, it seems, because Tijisan and Kramer Mabun 2017 argue that it's highly influenced by political considerations and also by social, cultural, and organizational environments in which researchers and scholars have to operate. And so it considers various factors over here when we talk about research excellence in the context of Africa. And also usually we see a clash between local relevance and global standards when it comes again to achieving research excellence in the African higher education institutions. Now, the point is that as I explained before, research excellence could be a very controversial term, but Tafara and Albach again claim that excellence in Africa must be grounded in the capacity to generate, I'm quoting now, adapt, and apply knowledge that meets the continent's unique socioeconomic and environmental needs. I think that's a great point, something which we need to consider. We need to localize research excellence when we talk about research excellence. And we need to start from this definition in order to establish research excellence in the post-secondary institutions in Africa. And also Agenda 2063, African Union 2015, advocates research publications that focus on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Again, another interesting point here. Now, with this background, I would like to discuss the prospects and challenge to research excellence. It's purely qualitative, based on document analysis and secondary sources, actually. I think it needs to be refined a lot, but at this point, it might really examine some critical points, especially the prospects and challenge. And I thought it might contribute in advancing the themes of today's conference. And so some of the prospects are to research excellence. We have some policy reforms and governmental support. I think it's mentioned as a positive theme. For example, Kenya's vision of 2030 and South Africa's national research and development, they all emphasize the significance of quality research to achieving national development. And that could be mentioned as a prospect. And also having the African academic diaspora network, that might help a lot too, and it's been going on for quite some time, so it could be mentioned as a prospect. The regional and international collaborations, again, Tafara 2013 explains that partnerships created by the African Research Universities Alliance and with institutions across the globe provide tremendous opportunities to finding, academic visibility, and research capacity building. So all these could be mentioned as really positive prospects to achieving research excellence. How about the challenge that we face? One is lack of sufficient and sustainable funding. Definitely, there is lack of sufficient and sustainable funding in achieving research excellence in Africa, because most African countries invest less than 1% of their GDP in research and development. And that could be mentioned as the major obstacle here. And also the other challenge is the brain drain in talent retention. I could be one of the victims probably here, because lots of great African scholars prefer to move abroad, and they work there, they have better life, and due to this reason, African higher education institutions may not have all the skilled manpower that they need.
So my topics is university industry linkage in Ethiopia, and it's mainly from the perspective of faculties, and actually it's university industry linkage directors of 7 Ethiopian public universities. So we were looking into the practices, challenges, and prospects. I would like to mention that this research is part of a bigger project. It's called integrated user activity. It's not anymore active because of the presidential order from the US. It has been funded by USAID. So actually, we were able to do this. So it's in collaboration with Arizona State University. Even though I'm presenting here, I have some colleagues from Arizona State University, Masarat Haido and Moli also. So we all know that we are living in an era of where economy is led by knowledge, not anymore by assumption and other things. And we also know that the contribution of universities, not only to the production of knowledge, but its contribution to the development of any country is very much significant. And we also strongly believe that partnership with industries is an essential, it's unavoidable, and it's inevitable. From the industry's perspective, there is a global competitiveness. So in order to compete at global levels, many big companies, industries want to collaborate with universities, because universities used to be believed as main source of knowledge, skill, and somehow also attitude, innovation, and so on and so on. But we strongly believe now that universities are not anymore the only source of knowledge and skill. So the importance of establishing a partnership between university, industry, and also government is not a unique phenomenon to Ethiopia and Africa. But when you make, let's say that a marriage, you might have your own reason, both the husband and the wife. When we also establish a partnership between university and industry, the interest of the industry, the interest of the university, and the government might be different. It might be different from institution to institution, from country to country, and from continent to continent. So generally speaking, universities are interested in establishing partnership or linkage with universities mainly to have research funding, as we have heard in the previous panel, for technology transfer purpose, to have access to address some practical problems of their own, and also the industry and the society, to address also some labor market, to get some labor market needs, relevance and quality of education, practical skills for students through internship and service learning. From industry perspective, they want to have a highly skilled human resource. They knew that the human resource they get is from the university or technical, vocational education, so and so on. They also want to improve their innovative ability. If they want to remain in the competition, they need to be very productive, competitive, so and so on. So for these general reasons, both universities and the industries want to create partnership in principle.
This was the 23rd International Conference on Private Higher Education in Africa. It is organized by St. Mary's, and as always, it is never shy of having higher officials, and that's what we have seen today. But conferences like this doesn't happen alone. We had the contribution and the support of the International Network of Higher Education in Africa, University of KwaZulu-Natal, Association of African Universities, Organization of Southern Cooperation, African Union Commission, and the Ethiopian Ministry of Education. The theme we had for the day was the academic profession and research excellence in Africa. And we had two sub-themes, research for development and impact, and the other one, the academic profession in times of change. During this day, we had two panels under the bigger umbrella of research for development and impact. And specifically, we've seen synergies, gaps, and alignment. And on the other one, we talked about policies, funding, and partnership. On both panels, three things came out boldly. The the essence of co-creation, dual appointment, and research translation. And we have also touched upon the issue of how the media could contribute in terms of advancing research into impact. Amongst the research papers that were presented, 11 papers were presented, from building cooperation from cross-cutting research to its impact in science, technology, and innovation, the challenge of scientific research being retracted from a number of different platforms and how we could circumvent that, the philosophical dimension of the journey of autonomy in higher education institution, and we have also seen the journey of differentiation, digitalization, and internationalization in higher education. From challenge and opportunities in creating and maintaining research partnership to assessing the practices, challenges, and prospects of university-industry linkage was also something that we've seen today. The last aspect that we've focused is on assessing societal relevance of higher education, and we have also touched upon at the end of it how we could embrace African indigenous knowledge in our research works. This wouldn't do justice, but considering the time, this is how the day has gone. Now, whenever there is such an event, we need a very good closing remark, and I would call no one but Ato Tadla, the Executive Vice President of St. Mary's University, to do that, because he has the right words to put things in a very small frame. Please give your hands to Ato Tadla as I call him today.
I don't think I deserve it. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to close the dialogue conference, which has enabled us gain thought-provoking ideas from the speakers, panelists, and paper presenters. Of course, the questions raised and the comments given by you participants were no less significant. Allow me to mention in passing that, by the mere coincidence, our conference theme, the academic profession and research excellence in Africa, reignited the issue as the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, CESA, which espouses building Africa's higher education and research capacity as a top priority on the African development agenda, closes this year. It lasted from 2016-2025. Whether or not it has built the capacity of African researchers, it stands to question. Truly, there are takeaways participants might ponder over as we end this closing session. Whether or not research in African higher education is impactful, and whether higher education institutions have lived up to the expectations of the society at large. With that note, allow me to thank our stakeholders who, in one way or another, contributed to the success of this conference. As has been the case with sitting ministers and the state ministers of education over the last 23 years, the presence of His Excellency Atokora Oshune, the State Minister for Higher Education, has indeed graced the occasion. Allow me to recognize amidst us the presence of Professor Abor Kasu as a former state minister who was supportive of the private sector highly. Please join me in recognizing his contribution. Thank you very much. Without the keynote speakers and paper presenters, this conference could not have been materialized. Some have come in person from distant places, others have synced virtually from where they were. Yet, all have enlivened the conference aura with their remarks and presentations. They deserve our words of thanks. Organizing such a conference is no easy exercise. Thanks go to our partners, the Ministry of Education, the Association of African Universities, the African Union Commission, the International Network for Higher Education in Africa, the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Both are represented by Professor Danto Tafarra, who is a long-time friend of St. Mary's. He is one of our staff members. The Organization for Southern Cooperation, these are all our partners. We thank the chairs and rapporteurs and our Master of Ceremony, Mokdala Mokrea. Thank you very much. At the home turf, St. Mary's enjoys the collegiality of diligent and untiring staff members who toiled beyond the call of duty. Of these, thanks are due to the general services and finance officers, the ICT unit, which has enabled us to get connected virtually, the receptionists there outside, who welcomed guests upon arrival here at the conference hall, the team of staff at the Research and Knowledge Management Office, led by Dr. Musganao, the Vice President for Research and International Communication, has carried the heaviest work burden of planning and executing the whole process of the conference. Many thanks to his team. Finally, we thank you, conference participants, for spending the whole day glued to your seats, for committing your precious time to make the conference a success. Thanks are also to the Inter-Luxury Hotel for its hospitality rendered by the catering unit, the technical team, and others who made us enjoy our stay here. With that, I declare the conference closed. I thank you.